Hey, folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. And finally, a day of good news in the crypto world. We have been living in the bottom of the bear market. And today, some big news. And you know what I think it really is because it's my guest's birthday, right? Waited for his birthday in order for all of this to happen. I'll tell you what, I kind of had a spring in my step today watching all the news. Anytime that Gary Gensler gets a black eye is a good day for me. But we've been getting bad news after bad news after bad news. And today, you saw this grayscale lawsuit. They beat the SEC. And that's going to open the door. There's a lot of folks, our friends at BlackRock are looking forward to having their ETF as well. So I think it's a good signal. Certainly, the markets liked it, and it's all over the news. But we need catalysts for the next bull run, because boy, I'll tell you what, I've been streaming pretty regularly, and it's not as fun unless there's a bull run, if you know what I'm saying. But today we have something special for you. Jim and I have been friends for quite some time, actually. Really early on in the whole crypto heartbeat thing, we connected. And he's been telling me about this project for a long time, and we finally are around to announcing and bringing him on to share this with you. Now, if you know me and you know Crypto Heartbeat, you know that I've been in the nonprofit space for all my career. And so this is really close to my heart. Anybody who is looking at finding ways to help nonprofit organizations and make the world a better place, hey, you got my attention. And that's what Jim has gotten. So let's bring on the birthday boy himself. Folks, the founder of Charity Chain. What's up, Jim? How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm great. It's been a great day with the news and everything else, man.
Yeah, happy birthday to you, man.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, we got some good people in here. I'm going to say hello to some folks, and then we'll kind of jump into that. We got Sam Kemp. Yeah, this is a follow-up to Gen Con. It's good to have people that are philanthropically minded and wanting to serve people in crypto. I'm excited about what you're going to share. Rich Liberation, exciting times ahead. Texan, DGen WP, Checks on Air, Anders, what's going on? Taryn, Pharaoh Gecko, what's up? The PLS crew. And Ruskino's here. Fantastic. Folks, thanks for being here for this. Jim, you and I have known each other for quite some time, and we've talked about this actually for a long time, and you're fully up and running now, because I know that you wanted to get your 501c3 status and everything with Charity Chain. It's finally here, man. You are officially ready to go. Tell us about Charity Chain and why you decided to do this.
Yeah, so I think you and I started talking right when you did the Crypto Compassion Community. So I think that was like September or August of 21. And I had gone to a charity auction. I'm in real estate, so there was a big conference, and they were basically asking people to donate. And I raised my hand and basically, donated a pretty good chunk. I had gotten into Hex early and donated to my buddy Fan, who runs Unseen, who's an anti-trafficking group. Okay. And what I experienced was I couldn't donate Hex directly at that point. I could sell it into Ethereum and then into dollars and then transfer it. And he just wanted to check at the end of the day. Yeah. I got to thinking like, hey, I'm just one guy. If we want to give easily in this community, we're going to need on-ramps and off-ramps. You've said that continuously, right?
Yeah.
We need to have on-ramps and off-ramps. And so I thought, okay, well, we're just one coin in a whole group of coins. Why don't we create a system that allows people to give all these sub tokens without having to sell them into their parent token and then create taxable events?
Yeah, that's a huge thing. And I think it's really important to say that 100 times. You don't want to sell crypto and give cash because of the taxation issue. But if you give an appreciated security like a stock or something of the sort, or in this case, crypto, you give that directly and there's no tax issue, so you can give more. But one of the big issues that I've always had is no one values Hex like we do. You know what I mean? Right. And it's like they want to automatically go into, they want to go immediately into cash. Have you thought about, and I know I'm throwing you a curveball here, have you thought about, kind of holding and staking for people and basically helping these nonprofits understand the power of crypto, especially in these cycles?
Yeah, that's the long-term vision for this, it started out where, hey, we want to just be able to give immediately to these organizations. But then we got to thinking, well, one, what if we create staking ladders?
Yep.
Two, what if we have validators that are giving micro amounts of money on each one of these transactions on each of these blockchains, and really creating a system where we're a perpetual cash system for these nonprofits. And right now, I mean, it's charity chain, fund the organization because we need to get up and running. But the long-term play with this is to create a donor-advised fund where people can go in, create their own staking ladders with Hex and other types of tokens, and then fund any nonprofit they choose.
Yeah.
So that's the long-term vision, is really creating a system where people can fund whatever they want. What's important to me may not be important to you, Matt.
Yep.
But let's figure out a system so both of them can get funded.
Yep. Well, and donor advised funds are very powerful tools for people who don't want to start their own foundation. They don't want to go through all the hoops that you've gone through to get your C3 status. And there's some great tools out there that really give you access to all registered nonprofit organizations. And you can, it's basically, like a self-directed IRA. You're doing this for your charitable giving. But the cool thing is when you give to Charity Chain, you receive that tax deduction up front, which is really good. But, always giving prior to some liquidation event is always more powerful as far as the impact on giving. Can you describe that and kind of how that would work with Charity Chain?
Yeah, and are you talking mostly on cycles, or tell me what you mean by that, Matt?
No, I mean, I just think, what we're talking about as far as the tax benefit of giving prior to.
Yeah. So in my case, I'm in real estate. I was giving a chunk of 20,000. And so I got into Hex relatively early. So all of that was taxable gains, almost all of it. And so I had a $20,000 taxable gain, and then I had a $20,000 offset. And so for me, if I would have been able just to give it directly, I would have had a $20,000 taxable offset instead of zero taxable offset.
Right.
So, if you have to sell an asset, if you're having to sell $20,000 of an asset, you're probably going to hold back 30%, maybe 40%, and only give 12K to the nonprofit. So this allows you to give more to the nonprofit and get more of a tax savings by having the nonprofit liquidate it rather than you yourself liquidate that asset to give.
Absolutely. And I think one of the other things that I think is really helpful is the fact that when let's say somebody wanted to give to Charity Chain, they could speak with you and your folks about their intent. Because I would think that, for example, let's say they wanted to give to a certain nonprofit organization, they know that you're going to handle tokens like Hex, which are stakeable, and understand the cycles as well. So could somebody say to you, all right, I want to give this amount, but I'd love for you to create some sort of staking ladder and drip this out to this organization. Could you do something like that and do something based on kind of the donor's desires?
Yep, we could. I mean, right now they'd have to actually communicate with us either, via email or just the contact us form. But long term, that will be the intent with the DAF, is you can go in and say, okay, I want to create a 5-year staking ladder with 100,000 Hex, and this is my nonprofit of choice. At the end of each stake, liquidate it, send a check to these people.
Okay. Very, very cool. And then currently I noticed on your website, and I'll pull this up here, folks, if you want to check out Charity Chain, you can go to charitychain.io. This is not a crypto project, right, Jim?
Right. There may be a charitable organization. We're a charitable organization. If you scroll down to the bottom, it has our EIN.
Yep.
You can go out on the IRS website, search that, see our application as well. Okay. So, I mean, my name's on there. Okay. Basically, we're a 501c3 approved organization, and you can give cash or crypto. And we're mostly concentrating on anti-trafficking.
Okay.
As well as a couple key areas. But I mean, for the most part, we need to get up and running, and we need funds in order to create that DAF so the whole community can give to whatever project they want. Right now, we need to get funded for us. And that is basically for coding. I'm not taking a salary or anything like that. It's literally just, let's get in, get the contract coded, get the audits done, and get it done so you guys have an opportunity during this next bull market to create your own DAFs on the site.
Well, that's huge. And I know that there are some fintech companies that are in this space that do provide kind of SaaS-based software for DAFs, but they certainly don't have, the ability to go in and create staking ladders and all of that kind of stuff. So that's definitely I think this is a gap in the market. I really do. For folks, a lot of people when they're thinking about, um, there's a lot of different reasons that people give, right? So sometimes it's
Yeah.
just, hey, tax time's coming up. Other times people want to have a certain type of impact. I think having someone that understands crypto um, in the charitable world is really helpful.
Yeah, that's what I noticed when we were originally talking, and we had a couple of advisors who really understood the nonprofit realm. You being one that I talked to quite a bit, but the nonprofits just want the cash, and there's a contract out there called Endowment that runs on Ethereum, and they've raised 55 million. But all that does is it literally just sends it to Uniswap, liquidates the fund into USDT, and then the nonprofits have to come out and claim it. Again, that's a hurdle for the nonprofits, and it really doesn't, in my opinion, embrace DeFi.
No.
We have staking, we have all this other things. Let's use that to create income streams for these nonprofits.
Yeah,
and I'm a nerd. Like, I'm a big math nerd, man. So the way I look at problems is, okay, how much does it cost to solve it? And then how much money do we need to do right now with appreciation in crypto assets and staking to solve that problem in a global scale in 10 years?
Yeah.
It's not that much money.
No, you're absolutely right. There's some challenges, in my opinion, with current solutions that are kind of crypto based. Everything I've seen is, in all my effort, I came into the nonprofit space during the .com era, and everybody wanted to get in between, be a middleman, right, in between the donor and the organization, try to get their cut. And when I look at crypto, it's the same thing. It's like those days are here again. People just want to, hey, give the crypto, we'll charge you a high percentage, and we'll just immediately liquidate. And there's just too much. I think there's too much around the cycles of crypto and the bull markets that people, you might need to give something away. You might need some sort of tax benefit right now. But I think finding somebody to say, all right, here are the wishes I have for this. Let's do some sort of staking deal, because right now you can't. I suppose you could encapsulate the stake and you could gift that.
Yep.
But there's just there's something about having someone that understands the type of token that you want to give, the impact that you want to give, and you might have a need to do that, and you don't know, when's the next top, and you just don't want to see them selling when a lot of times these things can have, I don't know, 10 to 50x. And, that would be so sad. You gave this valuable asset to them and they immediately liquidated it.
Yeah. No, it would be. It'd be very sad. And I think the other thing that a lot of people don't think about is there's people making money in a bear market too. You look at everything that's happened with PDAI lately and HOA, and thank you, Richard Hart, some of these other tokens that have gone up insane amounts. Like, every bear market has tons of opportunity if you're looking for it. That's how I got into it. I got in right after, January 2018. I got in July 2017, went through that roller coaster, that ride up, and then the ride down, and then started getting into dApps and really saw, like, this is the wild, wild west. There was a lot of bad actors back then, but I saw where the technology was going, and I made a ton of money in that bear market.
Yeah.
And because as long as you're in there participating, you're going to have a ton of taxable events.
Yep.
And so you need an organization to help offload that.
Yep. No question. So obviously there's a tax benefit, but you also, you mentioned there are things like trafficking, human trafficking.
Yeah.
Is that something, I mean, if somebody were to give you money like today, is that where your charitable giving would go to?
Yeah, a big chunk of it. I mean, right now I'd say it's, we have program costs and administrative costs. And so we need to put a large chunk into the program costs, and that's where it would go.
Okay.
So I am officing out of Unseen, which is downtown Fargo.
Yeah.
And so they're an anti-trafficking organization around the world. And so, yeah, a lot of that money would go to them and some other anti-trafficking organizations. But if you want it to go somewhere and you want it liquidated right away, we can work around that.
Yeah, one of the good things about, and I don't know that a lot of people know this, but once you are a registered 501c3 charitable organization, you can give directly to any other charitable organization. There's no issues there. So it's a straight pass through. And so I would just encourage you to look at Charity Chain as, being new and early, as a resource for you. And then, you obviously want to get partners who see things the way you do and want to support what you're doing, how do people go about getting in contact with you? Would that be on the website, or what's the approach?
Yeah, they can, right on the bottom of the website, there's the contact us form. They can go there. I'm on Twitter. It's just Charity Chain on Twitter.
Okay.
There's a Telegram group as well. I can post that on the video after this with all the links. It's just charitychain.io, and then it has all the social links on there too, I believe. So
okay, so that's home base. Okay.
Yep. So this form that Matt's on right now is if you want a tax receipt.
Yeah.
You would fill that out, and then on the next page it connects to your wallet, and then you would be able to go ahead and do those donations. So on multiple blockchains. Right now, Pulse is obviously the big push, but there's Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, any others as well.
Okay, so EVM compatible chains, you'll accept token there. Okay. And what do you think? I mean, this sounds like to me, it's really an option for those that need some sort of tax benefit, but don't want it to be immediately sold off for cash, right? I mean, that seems like a really low-hanging fruit kind of value to people that are like, hey, I want to help this organization, but I don't want to just hand them this because they'll just liquidate it.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately what we want is, I mean, if we had Pulse and PulseX right now, we're just going to do liquidity farming.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing too, is we're just going to create stakes. We don't really need much funding. We're getting funding from a lot of realtors on the cash side as well. And so my goal is to get as much funding as possible. I know it's a bear market, but I think the big vision is we know the HEX community is extremely generous and gave $27 million in a month. My goal is to create systems that automatically generate that amount every month.
Yeah.
Just hand it off to nonprofits.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's about $1,000 to $2,000 to save a kid out of trafficking. And my goal is to save as many as possible. Just hearing some of the stories told by Fan and everybody else, it's pretty gut wrenching. And I mean, I saw it in Afghanistan too, with kids there, and hearing those stories, kids that I was helping. And that's kind of what my focus is now that I'm a dad too. Like, I can't imagine anybody hurting kids like that, man. And so, that's what I'm passionate about. And that's what Charity Chain's passionate about. But the long-term vision is no matter what you're passionate about, we can create a system so you can do that within your donor advised fund.
Okay. So I think that's a big long-term goal that people need to understand. A donor advised fund, is where you do give, you give, for example, let's say you gave in a lump sum, whether it's crypto or otherwise, and you'd be able to, because you've given it actually to the charitable organization. But usually the tools in a donor advised fund allow you to decide when and where you give that out. So some people, for example, will use a donor advised fund, and let's say they have a sale of a business, or they've got, there's a lot of different strategies from a tax savings perspective, and you always want to consult a tax advisor prior to the sale of any asset, because many times giving the asset itself can have bigger impact and less taxation. But I think the cool thing is, you essentially have this kind of philanthropic savings account, if you will, where you can then decide on a certain schedule to give out of that donor advised fund. And I know and you don't have to be a high net worth individual to do this, but I think a lot of people that are having, let's say, people who have distributions or those type of things, and they want to reduce that adjusted gross income, or there's some issues there, they've got to lower their tax burden and want to have more impact. I think many, many more people would rather give to charitable organizations than give to the government.
Yep. Yeah. What's interesting is the average crypto donation is almost, honestly, it's 1,000x the average cash donation. And
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. Depending on the market conditions.
In a bull market. Well, I know, I think the average cash donation in the US right now is like $12. And the average in 21 for Giving Block was about 12,000.
Oh, wow.
And that's, just taking some of the major, say, blue chip type cryptos alone. And so there's a lot of the market that has no way to give right now. And that's what we want to take over and solve is, people that are playing in the dApps. Excuse me.
Yeah. What makes me more comfortable is the fact that you understand crypto. And that's the thing I think is the big appeal here is if you're talking to anyone else, straight to the nonprofit organization, or using some sort of tool, they're just going to liquidate that. And I think that the sensitivity to understand what kind of asset it is, how it could be, the value of it could be preserved. And this is a good, in some respects, you're kind of parking it for the bull run. But a lot of times people need somewhere to go to when it relates to their, taxable events, because those are pretty, those are on the calendar versus bull runs. And if you do know when the next bull run is going to be on the calendar, let me know. I need to know that information. Hopefully it just kicked off though, right? Is it possible, you think?
I think it's possible, and each one has a catalyst, and it usually starts 4 to 6 months before I have an event, and we're a little bit ahead of that right now, but
yeah,
I mean it's kind of lining up, right?
Yeah, so I've been thinking. Yeah, I've been thinking that the January 1 is kind of like big time go time. Yeah. But boy, it would be nice to get through this SEC thing with Richard Hart, and the grayscale thing is just. I mean, it's just what I needed. I need some encouraging news.
Well, winning stacks, right, and losing stacks, and so the SEC is stacking losing now, and everybody else in crypto is stacking wins, and so I hope that continues.
Yeah, I watched an emergency live stream by Banter today because they got the news and they went live immediately. And I thought it was interesting. They included Richard Hart in their discussion. They said, you got Coinbase, you've got the Grayscale Trust, you've got, big players that are out there taking on, obviously you've got Ripple, but big players taking on the SEC. And he included Richard Hart. And he even said this. He's like, Richard Hart's got billions of dollars. I thought it was kind of funny how, in a way he's right that, these people have the pockets to defend and get good representation. And, it'd be nice to get these things behind us, and it would be nice to see Gensler go out not on a high, if you will.
Right. When I'm trying to remember, when is his term up?
24. I want to say 25. I heard it on Rags' stream the other day, but everyone's been saying that he would be the next Treasury Secretary, but everything's up in the air right now with politics and who's going to be in. I mean, heck, we're talking about jailing the opposition party. It's crazy. So we'll see if sensible people get back into leadership.
Yeah, isn't it crazy? I mean, you've been through about the same number of election cycles I have, and every time we just think like maybe it'll be better this time. Yeah, maybe it'll be more rational, and every time it just gets worse.
Well, it seems like, I mean, I heard somebody say years and years ago that just the pendulum swings, right? Yeah. And if you're patient, you realize that it ends up swinging. But Obama swung it really hard left. And of course, whenever you swing something hard left, you get the hard right out of it, right? And so you got Trump out of it. Now, the question is, in this crisis area that we're in now, who are the people that are going to bring back, some sanity? And of course, there's a similarity to Reagan coming in. It feels a lot like a Carter administration. Now we've got all the woke stuff and all that, but economy, energy, all that kind of stuff. Is it possible, that the next person might actually bring, some stability? The only one that I see out there, it's interesting. It's like Vivek Ramaswamy or whatever his name is. He's interesting just because he's a younger guy. But I mean, the way Trump is gaining from his thug photo, I mean, he's definitely the current leader on the Republican side.
Raised $7 million since in that night when it was released.
Oh my gosh. I was doing, I don't know if you saw my stream on that the country music singer that did Rich Men North of Richmond. Yeah. Yep. Oliver Anthony. Obviously he's just been, I mean, number one on the Billboard, top 100. He's been, top on iTunes. And it's just an indication to me that people are done, right? They're just fed up with this. And so, we'll see. But, the world's in a pretty precarious spot. And I think that, well, let me ask you this. This will be a good kind of question for you. I think I froze up there. Let me ask you this about Richard Hart and the Pulse Chain and your thoughts on this. And I have not prepped you for this one, so I'm curious what you think. Yeah. So with everything that's happening in the world and CBDCs and digital IDs and all the things that we think are coming, globalists and tyranny and authoritarianism, How consequential do you think the Pulse chain is long term?
The court case?
No, just the fact that the Pulse chain, its ecosystem, Richard Hart's leadership, if you will, do you think that lasts? Do you think that that's going to be important chain in crypto?
Yeah, I mean, I'm betting on it financially, and I'm betting on it with a nonprofit that is going to be a pretty big chain. I guess the way I look at it is, okay, we've had all the FUD, we've had the SEC stuff. We're still in the top 10 for volume when our value, which dictates the volume value, is down 90%, 90, 95%. And so to me, yeah, I'm betting on it because I think it does have value. I think it will continue to have value, and I think people will go one where the fees are less and it makes sense. I never realized how much I was spending on fees until I did my taxes in 21 and 22, and I saw those transaction costs, and I almost passed out. I couldn't believe how much money it was. It was in the tens of thousands, and I'm not a huge whale, but it was just such an unbelievable amount. And so just that alone, having that amount of money that can compound through multiple cycles protects you. And I like the bad news bears, right?
Yeah,
I
me
like
too.
the people that are standing up for what's right and that are kind of the underdogs. I've bet on that every time in my life, and I loved it, and I love those results. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be a huge chain. And the thing is, if it's not Richard and it's not Pulse Chain, whatever comes next will be influenced by Pulse Chain.
Yeah.
And so it will be, in my opinion, it will be fundamentally and instrumentally a big change for the entire crypto space.
Yeah. I see it as we get past this lawsuit and we see some, practical regulations. I just don't think that Richard Hart is going to compromise his principles. When he came out, he was talking about free speech and free movement prior to people really relating to how serious it was. And now I know he's going to be talking about security, privacy, all of these things that, if you think about the true tenets of DeFi and why it was created, Richard Hart is the one who has always been, championing that cause. And the more that the tyrants and the centralized authorities want to, take away people's freedom, want to become middlemen, I think the more he'll be galvanized to just say, all right, if there's not going to be an alternative, right, we're going to make one. And I believe that's what, to me, the Pulse Chain represents, is this ecosystem to say, right now you've got all these options, but if you're forced to get a government wallet and what comes with the CBDCs and digital IDs, and we're already seeing it with the WHO, we're seeing that there is going to be, a non-elected government organization that is going to dictate how you travel. And it is going to be across the board. You watch how governments just sign up, because it was the system that was used by the EU. They've adopted now for the WHO. And of course, we'll see all of these, Western governments saying, yep, you can't travel unless you fit the criteria for the WHO. Well, that's going to limit people's ability to move. And, I think people are going to see this and they're going to want an alternative. And right now, I don't think people are it's not as in their face. But I think the next time a big crisis comes, the next time that they're wanting to push CBDCs and all that, we need to be ready to go with an alternative. And I just see people building across the Pulse Chain. And to me, that gives me a lot of hope that it may not happen overnight. But boy, I'll tell you, when people realize that this is, that the real face of this is being exposed, they're going to want an alternative.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you're starting to see that pushback. I was on Twitter this morning, or X as it is now, and was seeing pictures of people that are basically damaging all the surveillance cameras that are in those communities where you can't travel now. And you're going to start seeing more and more vandalism on things like that, and more pushback. And the pendulum is swinging, like you said. And I mean, it's interesting because I think a lot of Americans haven't experienced besides the military and civilians that have lived overseas, like contractors, what it actually means to live in a lockdown where you can't move anywhere. I mean, we had the COVID lockdowns, but I'm talking lockdowns like when I was in Afghanistan, where every 2-3 blocks you had a checkpoint, you had to show your ID. You hope that they don't try to open the door, and I hope that never comes here. But yeah, stuff's getting crazy, and I think we have to push back early, or you don't push back at all.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot happening behind the scenes. And it's funny, as I was watching something, Whitney Webb, she's an independent journalist. She's the one that wrote the stuff on like 1,000-page book on the whole mob and Epstein stuff. And she is just absolutely brilliant. And, making it really clear what the World Economic Forum, the WHO, all these folks are kind of planning. They're being really clear. This is how we see the future. And this whole 15-minute city and all of these things, stakeholder stuff, which is just code for, we want to understand everything you're doing. And yeah, there's going to be, I think there are going to be hopefully some good leaders in the future. And we just need to stand up for our sovereignty, man. This is out of control.
No, I agree. And I think I'm hoping that comes in the next election cycle. I'm liking some of the candidates for that reason, because they are so anti-CBDC. The problem I see with it is Americans don't have a long attention span usually.
Yeah.
And they can't see more than 2 or 3 steps ahead. And so by the time that those things are, actually in place, it's usually too late. So yeah, there's work to do. That's why I'm glad you're doing the work.
Yeah. Well, let's keep on building. And I'm just really, you said the Bad News Bears, which I really respect and appreciate the reference, because not all the young people understand that one. But to me, the Hexicans and the Pulsicans are the underdogs. And when you're defending principled things, you're standing on the side of truth, which is, hey, you have this inalienable right. You don't get it from the state, this ability to speak and to transact and to move. And if we can do our part on the financial side, which is really this base layer, if you don't have the ability to make money and to spend and to transact freely, you don't have any of these other rights as well. And so, I think that narrative is really powerful, and it's going to become more and more relevant, rather than saying, hey, our chain's cheaper or our chain's faster. It's not going to be about features anymore. It's going to be about, okay, you want everybody knowing every single transaction that you make. Do you want to have all this OFAC stuff? Because OFAC's just the beginning. I don't think anyone disagrees that, if you're, trafficking people or selling drugs, that, that's a good thing. But they're just putting that on, they want to tell people that crypto is, nefarious stuff, when in reality, it's actually a lot more transparent than cash. But we do need advice. Yeah. We definitely need
you'd be an idiot if you were laundering money on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, look at Silk Road. Like, it took a while, but it was a new technology back then. I mean, there's entire departments now that can data mine the blockchain and find patterns and everything else. So, I mean, it's on there forever. It's immutable. Like, if you're doing illegal stuff with it, you're an idiot, because the record's there.
Well, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but if you don't think that people know your IP address and who you are, and there's not a database behind the scenes, you are fooling yourself. I mean, this has been gathered long ago. But yeah, it's, I mean, to me, this is a definitely a hopeful sign, is to know that, and potentially Richard saw this way ahead of time, but it just becomes more apparent to me that I can't see a single founder out there in the world who understands what's going on like Richard does, the real implications of it. And it's ironic that the movie was called The Highest of Stakes, because it has nothing to do with staking. It's the stakes of literally our future as independent sovereign people.
Yep, I agree. And there's talking and there's doing. And I think if you look at the pattern, he hasn't paid to have, placement of Hex or anything else on these coin ranking sites, or any of the other things that most other founders will do in order to get their project out there. And I think that's speaks volumes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess here's my question to you, man, is you think he fights it or you think he settles?
Oh, I think he fights it. I think he fights it, and I think that, I mean, there's a possibility that, you know, his attorneys and they make their case, because he's even put things out onto Twitter that are pretty compelling, right? To say, hey, folks, we had opinion letters written ahead of time. We planned beforehand about this, especially with Hex. I think the pulse chain sacrifice is a little bit harder, because I think the SEC could make a case that I don't care what you call it. But, you know, I think probably the best case against that is the fact that there's no, they might say that there's an implied investment agreement, but there is no investment agreement, and that was clearly defined. You gave this away, and I think you should have the freedom, just like with Charity Chain. You have the freedom to give your money, or to throw it in a hole, or to burn it. That's your choice. If you wanted to give it to some random address, that's your choice. And, you know, that's the thing I think that they're going to go after, is try to connect this enterprise that Richard Heart, quote unquote, represents, even though there's no business, that there was some sort of implied investment contract. That's going to be pretty tough. And so the question is, if they don't think that they can win, will they offer some, you know, small settlement and move forward? I mean, I just don't want to miss another cycle, right? You don't want this hanging over our head.
Yeah, I mean, that's my only reason that I would want to settle, is just not to miss the cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ripple case was 2.5 years, and I think literally, I saw the number the other day, I think it was 200 million they spent on lawyers.
Wow.
It was an insane amount of money. I would much rather see a settlement for 50 or whatever amount it is, with no admission of wrongdoing, and move forward and be able to enjoy the gains.
Yeah.
And have the glory from the gains and from releasing other products that protect privacy and protect, you know, transactions and interacting, than the glory of beating them in a court case.
Yeah. Well, and if it comes down to that, I mean, it's legalized extortion. Basically, a regulatory body can say, hey, pay us, and we'll go away. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't think Richard is either. I mean, if he wants the glory, I think one of the most glorious things would be for him to publicly be able to have a case be won, and him to be able to stand on that. Because everything I know about Richard is, you know, his reputation matters to him. It's at times I think it doesn't, but most of the time, for the glory, he wants to be seen as somebody that's defending, you know, regular people and DeFi. And, you know, I'm glad that he's the one that's, you know, I'm glad that he's one that's kind of fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see. You know, it's what, November, whatever that date was, November 8th, I think, or
the conference call. We'll see what that ends up being. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I think some good news today on your birthday. That everybody needs some good news on their birthday. So happy birthday to you. Yeah. And folks, if you want to know more about Charity Chain, you obviously can go to charitychain.io. You know, there's contact information there. There's Twitter. You can obviously hit up Jim in the DMs on Charity Chain on Twitter as well. What kind of folks are you looking to talk to first? I know that you want to kind of get some basic things set up before you go with a donor advised fund. Who do you want to reach out to you?
You know, right now it's really anyone that wants to donate, that believes in the vision and the cause, anyone that is willing to, you know, help with whether that's marketing or Twitter, Telegram, anything like that. You know, you and I are going to have a conversation on development on some things, but any devs that have ideas as well of how we can make the contract good, looking at these other contracts like endowment. I am literally looking for anybody that's passionate about giving. And so those are the conversations I've had with a lot of people, is they're like, hey, I've loved this idea. I didn't know how to do it. You've done it. How can we now work together? And those are the type of conversations I love, because I love to collaborate, and my goal is to make Hex and the Hex community the most passionate giving community out there. I want to raise millions, if not billions, and put it to work in the world. And, you know, if we get back into that price appreciation cycle where it's, you know, if it's like Bitcoin and it doubles in price every year, that gets really fun from a giving perspective on what that can do.
Oh yeah. There's no question about it. And just so you folks know, you know, I mentioned that I've been in the nonprofit space. Jim did all the work ahead of time. This is not an idea he has. The Charity Chain exists. They are a registered 501c3 charitable organization in the United States. They have their EIN. You can check all of these things out if you go to the website. They can receive cash and crypto now. If there are some special things you want to do, I know that there are people that have challenging tax situations and they want to be able to give, but also want to make sure that when they're giving, they know that the person or the organization understands the value of crypto and where we are in the cycles. And so I think that's huge. And then if you're just somebody who wants to partner with others who want to do good in the world, you know, Jim, you're the right guy to talk to. And I'm just glad. That's the cool thing I've learned in this community is so many people who don't just want to be rich when Lambo. They're like, hey, if I'm going to have this kind of resource, I want to make a difference. And I think teaming up is the key to that.
Yeah, instead of when Moon, when Lambo, for us, it's like when save kids.
Yeah. Some very fundamental things. Yeah.
Yep. And so, please reach out. I mean, anybody that has questions, thoughts, any ways that we can improve things too. I mean, we're all ears. We want to help, and we want to help the community too.
Yeah. And I think anyone who is in a position where I've found, new nonprofits are being really helpful too is it takes a lot of effort to get a nonprofit organization off the ground and get your C3 status. And it's a real asset. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can give that Jim can help facilitate now that he has this C3 status. So everything from appreciated securities. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways in which you can give, but there's a lot of benefits of giving prior to liquidation. And that's really the benefits of having a charitable designation. And so if you're somebody in that situation, you got questions, I'm sure that, Jim can direct you and help advise and guide you in that. But I just appreciate your heart for others and, desire to serve people within our community. This is the kind of innovation, we got people all across the board building all kinds of different things. And here's Jim with Charity Chain doing it on the philanthropic side. So thank you for all that you're doing, man.
Well, hey, I appreciate everything you've done, dude. You got a whole community pumped up, ready for the cycle when it does 1,000x or 10,000x to create some really big giving. And none of this is lost on me how much you've been on this community, dude.
Well, it's funny. Misery loves company, man. We just have stuck it out. I look at Brandon. Brandon and I talk pretty much daily, and you just slog it out. And it was so fun in the last bull run, and then to ride this whole thing down, and then to see things like happen today with just a little bit of good news. It's not like you can cheer or anything, but having and seeing these catalysts, seeing the sentiment, you can kind of tell people have just been waiting for something to kind of trigger something better than bad news. And, if you think about these ETFs that will ultimately come, this is obviously exposing retail to crypto. And, we know that there's a bonding of pairs. And so wherever Bitcoin goes, ultimately, we get to ride with them. I still think we have a little bit of time before we get really into the heat of it, but the halvening's coming up probably in April. The beginning of the year is going to be, prime time. But we've lasted this long. We can at least last another 6 months.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we're already in the longest bear. So
yeah,
now it's just surviving, right? So yeah. I'm in real estate, and right now, this is worth real estate market in 20, probably 25 years. And we talk about it every day. Right now, we just need to survive. We need to survive the next 6 months, and then we'll thrive, because there's going to be a lot of realtors that don't. And if we can survive through this, you're set up for some massive gains if you're in the crypto space or in the real estate space.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, people, these people that are capitulating and selling the bottoms like this. I mean, the smart people that have been around realize this is the time, right? This is the time to accumulate. Yeah. I mean, you just look across the board, things down 90+%. But you got to pick a horse to ride. And, I don't have a crystal ball, nor do I give financial advice. So, right. Well, Jim, thanks so much. Happy birthday to you. Thanks for coming on. You're welcome here anytime. But I appreciate all you're doing for the community, and, we'll catch you in the green room.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, man.
You bet. All right. That's Charity Chain, folks. Check them out, charitychain.io. I just want to say hello to you. A number of people come into the chat and just recognize you and say thanks for coming by. Sovereign Man is here. Scarlet Rose 369, Crypto Bigfoot, John Clow. What's up, man? Good to see you again. Thanks for being here live. Viber Finance CEO. Talk about a guy who's spitting alpha. That's the guy, David Lee, all the way from Southwestern Indiana. Good to see you. Raquel. Wow. First time I've seen you in the chat. I love the Goal to Charity chain. Huge supporter of it. Fantastic. Roof Dogs here. Academaciated. Cadium. Hello, Cadium. Good to see you, man. Godfather J6 always in the chat. Katie, what a great project to connect crypto to nonprofits and change the world for the better. Amen to that. Moon Whale, Jason Hunter, Hexonium. Somi says to settle and not miss the cycle too. Well, we'll see. You know, I'd like to see Richard Hart being right. And you know, I think Somi made a really good point when he said, you know, people are going to call Richard a scammer regardless of what happens. But boy, it'd be nice to get one in the win column for against the SEC, you know, but we will see. Donnie, what's up, Donnie? Awesome to see you here. Thanks for stopping by. Crypto Pez, great thinking. I've been thinking to find ways to do this for years. I wish you blessings. Fantastic. Go Ophir, absolutely. We launched Ophir not long ago, and the folks in the Philippines are fired up. Kay Hudson's here, and Fallen Comrade. Thanks for joining the Pulse today. My name is Matt. We will be back again tomorrow, and then on Friday with Steve Staggs once again for episode 19. Hope you're doing well. Take care of yourself. Enjoy this little bit of good news, and wish Jim a happy birthday. Take care, everybody, and do not mess with Texas. Bye-bye.